Good day and welcome on back, everybody. In the background, we'll have Valheim, just me doing my normal gathering thing for my Mother Let's Play. So, anyways, we left off in the fight for pretty much the fight for survival between Root Spider, that's several times bigger than Akeada, in a huge, not really huge, but a big open area in water. A shallow pool of water that goes roughly up to his knees. It's not too deep or anything like that. So, the exact spot we left off was Akeada charging the spider. The spider not really slowly, but approaching Akeada. Now, Aki doesn't have very much experience with fighting, so this whole fight's going to be him pretty much learning to fight. So, Akeada jumps up to land on the spider, but the spider easily swats him down with one of its many legs. Akeada slamming into the ground, and the spider piercing Akeada with his back with piercing Akeada's back with its stone. It's like a bladed arm, kind of meant for cutting, ripping, tearing, blah blah blah. So it pierces him and just pierces his back, keeping him under water, and the spider goes in to bite Akeada. But Akeada rips away, kind of taking a chunk off Akeada as well. He now has like a huge gash in his back going. Think about like the midsection under your ribs just being cut away. But they heal really quick, so Akeada just immediately started healing. But the thing is he did this in quick succession, so the healing didn't actually do anything to the spider, which we will get to later. So, Akeada rips away, gets back up, holding his stomach where he was impaled and it ripped away. It's already healed back up, the steaming stops, and he goes back at the spider. The spider turns around and then swats Akeada away again. Akeada gets hit so hard he goes flying and slamming into the side of the cave. Again, he breaks free, lands on the ground, but he can't quite see the spider, so he just runs straight where he came from. The spider is gone, so he's slowly moving through the water, looking. He starts solely focusing on his senses, like the pulse. The pulse starts getting quicker and quicker. It doesn't go any farther, but it's going out quicker and quicker and quicker, to a point where it's just a bubble now. It's just a bubble of sensory. He stops moving and just stands there, just focusing on that. The spider actually jumped up, and it was where it was originally, up on the roof of the cave, which is far enough that he can't quite see. The spider drops down, and the front, not really the front, but his legs touch the bubble, and Akeada immediately jumps forward, rolling on the ground as the spider slams down into the water. Akeada quickly gets back to his feet, hands down, like in a thing. Quickly, he gets to his feet. He extends his hands like he does. He extends his claws. Not only extending them, but it puts them out. And he's looking at the spider. The spider quickly swipes at him because Akeada is still in his reach. Because Akeada can't quite see as far, so he's got to keep close to the spider to be able to see it. And as the spider swipes with its stone claws, Akeada starts dodging, ducking, bobbing and weaving, getting better and better at pretty much reflect his reflexes. He does take some hits. It does swipe and graze him a bit, but he's getting better and better and better. Now, one of the swipes he's tried, the swipes coming right at his head, he tries blocking it with his hand, but it gets his wrist and it cuts his hands off. His hand falls to the water. He quickly rolls to the left because he blocked with his left side, so he rolls to the left, grabbing it with his right hand and pretty much sticking his hand back on as it heals, while maintaining visual of the spider. Spider quickly follows it with a swipe. He jumps up, but because he's not too used to his tail just yet, because he hasn't done very much with it. The claw actually got the end of his tail, cutting his tail off. Aki doesn't pay it any mind now, because as he jumped up, he pulled up his knees too, so it got a good chunk of his tail off, but he doesn't really use it to fight or anything like that, so he pays no mind to it. So in his mind, he now doesn't have a tail. But once he lands back down, he goes to run forward, but then falls flat on his face because he's so used to the way he was with the tail that he now has a harder time balancing because his tail is pretty much counterbalancing him. So he falls on his face. Without hesitation, the spider raises his claw up and goes to impale Akeada again. But he just starts rolling, and the spider is just following him as Akeada is just rolling on the ground. So, as he's rolling, the spider is constantly just stabbing the ground, and he's just rolling in circles. But at some point, he does get nicked by the spider, gets his leg, and his leg is impaled. The spider raises him up as he's stuck. Sorry, just taking a drink. Gotta stay hydrated. So, the spider raises him up and uses his other claw to pretty much stab him in the side. So he's now, the spider can hold him sideways. It goes in and bites down on Akeada's side with its foot-long fangs. Fangs go into Akeada. Akeada grabs the stone claw. It is like barbed, so can't quite get away because that's what it uses to catch prey. Anyways, the venom that the spider has now starts pumping into Akeada. The venom is damaging Akeada as it goes through, which is causing the damaged cells that the venom is now damaging to burn. And it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. It's like boiling water. Boiling water is now coursing through Akeada. Because as the venom spreads, behind it is burning away. So he's not like venom resistant. The venom is having an effect, but his healing is getting rid of the venom as it's coursing through. Now, the original spot where the spider bit in Dragon is now getting hotter and hotter and hotter and is starting to burn the spider. And same thing with its stone claws. It's starting to get extremely hot because his body is trying to repair, but it can't. So it just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter, trying to heal to the point where the spider flings Akeada back, and his claws are now kind of ruined and just red hot. Its fangs are also red hot as well because it started heating up really quick. Now, without missing a beat, since Akeada is used to his healing factor, he just grabs his sides, grabs his side as he gets back up on his feet, and just starts running back at the spider once it's done, which only took a second or a few. Because the venom is all burned up, it didn't really have too much of an effect on him because it never got a chance to do anything to him because it was just burned away. So he's running at the spider as it's frantically flailing about because its fangs are hot, its claws are hot, although it can't really feel its claws, but its fangs. It feels the fangs because that's like right at its face. Like he's just running. The spider's paying him no mind now. Akeada jumps up, lands on top of the spider, and then digs his claws into the back of the spider. And then the spider starts frantically running around, slamming into the caves even more. Hot fangs, and Akeada on his back just starts ripping at the abdomen of the spider. And he's just continuously doing this. Now starts digging a hole into the spider. But in the heat of the moment, something snaps in Akeada's mind, and all he hears is consume. As he's ripping parts off of the spider, throwing it out, the voices has getting louder and louder and louder to the point where his faceplate starts cracking where a mouth should be. The spider finally slams into a wall, knocking, well, not finally, it's been slamming, but slams into the wall, finally knocking Akeada off because he stopped for a moment once his faceplate started cracking. Kind of like, say you put tape on your mouth and you try opening your mouth, right? It's pretty much what it is. Akeada doesn't really have a mouth. It doesn't really have a mouth, per se. But one is starting to pretty much be formed in tandem of this strong desire that's now radiating in his mind, which is to consume. So, back to what we're talking about. Akeada gets flung off. Akeada gets flung off, landing in the water. Now scratching at his face, where his mouth is. And he finally gets his claws in, pulls down, breaking the part, like starts cracking all the way through, gets to the ends, breaking it down. And now exposes the under part of the mask, and it just starts burning like a mouth was supposed to be there all along. The side note, the voice in his head is pretty much causing his body to alter quickly. So now it starts burning, and it opens up like a mouth should. But in place where the teeth are supposed to be, it's just roots. And the mask starts forming jagged, so he's pretty much evolving right then and there. The spider's starting to calm down. Like if we pan back over to the spider, it's starting to calm down, shaking it off, rubbing its face, dragging its face in the water to cool off the fangs. So they cooled off. It shakes off part of the water and looks back towards Akeada, him on his knees, with his arms down, leaning back, and just a big stream of pretty much smoke just pouring out of his face. But the spider quickly charges, Akeada raising up its arm, going down to pierce. Like in that kind of position. As it approaches Akeada, Akeada then senses and snaps back to what he was doing, rolls out of the way, but still hears that voice in his head just telling him to consume. So as he is continuing the fight with the spider, he manages to get under the spider again, grabs onto one of his legs, but instead of pulling it, he instead bites it with his newfound mouth. And he manages to pierce into the spider's legs and rips off a chunk as it flings him off of his leg. Now, that piece of the spider just stays in his mouth because he doesn't really know what to do with it. He just keeps his mouth closed with it in it. Now, I'll just describe that later. Anyways, so it's sitting in his mouth. He runs back at the spider again. The spider swipes at Akeada. Barely missing, because he slid under it and jumped up with his hand formed. He kept his fingers close together, thrusted it up into the bottom portion of the head of the spider right below where his fangs are. He stabbed it up in there. The spider starts frantically like swinging his head around, trying to get him off. Akeada puts his other hand, opens up his hand inside, and just rips downwards on the spider. He didn't get like too far, only a hand's length in, but then opened up his hand, claws ripped out. Ripped out a portion of the spider, but he was still under it. The spider went left. He grabbed onto the leg again, another piece of leg, but this time when he grabbed on, he flung himself up a little bit higher on the spider to the base of the leg. He grabbed the body of the spider, grabbed the leg, and bit down on the base of the foot, base of the leg of the spider, pushing with his feet against the spider and his arm. He has one leg off the spider, one foot on the body, the other foot on the body, teeth in or mouth on, biting down at the base, and he manages to rip off the leg of the spider. He lands down, grabs the leg, because the spout is all he is, grabs it and rolls away. He rolls away, gets back up on his feet, and as the spider turns around, he's charging at the spider with the severed leg. He manages to hit like on the side, but the spider quickly swatted him away. So now there's its severed leg stabbed into the front, where the stone sharper hinges are. It quickly knocks it off and turns back to Akeada. And just starts charging at him again. And now at the final stitch, because it's now lost a lot of blood, it has open wounds all over. While Akeada is still kicking strong, all of the damage it does is just heals back up. The spider is healing, but not to the extent of pretty much Advancer. Think about like the creatures being just bigger, stronger, what Satches could be. The only thing that's stands a threat to anything in the world is gonna be Advancer. Or another creature. Anyways, back to it. Okay, quickly gets to his feet after being knocked away. The spider is running at him, and Akeada runs at him too. Now, he tries sliding under again, but the spider is already wary of this and then meets him with his stone claw, getting him square in the chest, impaling him through. But this time, the spider tried flinging him away, but Akeada grabbed onto the claw so he couldn't quite get him off. The spider was flinging him about as the impaled spot starts getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Akeada grabs on and pulls it further in up to the face of the spider. The spider raises up its other one to come at Akeada, but he raises his arm up, and the claw gets like all the way down to where its O is, and just gets stuck. Because he's really close, so he couldn't put as much power behind it. So it pulls away, pulls the stone claw away from Akeada's arm and goes back in for another. But he raised his arm back up, blocking the spider, and it cuts into him this time because his hand starts healing up, but it's not quite. But as his hand reconnects, goes back to normal. The spider pulls away, but as it's pulling away, he reaches out and grabs the blade of it with his claws. So he's holding it there, and as he's pulling himself closer and closer to the spider, it's swinging about trying to get him off, but he's not budging. Because again, they're barbed. So he can't quite shake him off. So as he's pulling closer, he gets within arm reach of the spider's face. He lets go of his left hand, the one that's been pulling himself closer, raises his back keeping his fingers close together, and then thrusts it into the side of the head of the spider. Right at the base. I don't know if the spider anatomy. I don't. So he shoves it deep into where the stone claw that's propelling him now is. He grabs it, brings up both of his feet, puts it against the spider. The spider bites down on one of his legs, the right one. It is with its fangs, and Akeada pushes off the spider, taking its arm with it, because he's able to tear off a piece, or tear it enough that he was able to pull off. So now he falls back, his spider falls back as well. But this time, Akeada gets back up with the pincher still in him. He rips it out and it starts approaching the spider that's now laying on the ground, writhing. It tries to get back up to its last ditch effort to get away now because it wants to run. And as it's getting up, Akeada's still approaching, it turns to now flee, but Akeada jumps up, lands on the back abdomen, and then stabs down with the stone claw in it. And the spider jumps up to where it was, or jumps up. Ida is still on its back, and they go to the roof. It tries to grab the roof, but it can't. It can't jump as high, so it starts falling back down, slamming into the water, driving the stake just a bit deep. I said stake. Driving the stone claw deeper into his bag. And when they land, or when they're down on the ground, it does fall off. The spider is now just laying there. It jumps back up onto its bag, rips out the stone claw, and walks down to the head of it. And then just impales down, ending the spider. Now exhausted, Akeada falls back, landing in the water, but sitting back up. Sitting back up and getting back up, with that voice still ringing in his head, telling him to consume. So without thinking, he starts eating the main spider until he can't no more. Until he gets his fill, pretty much, and the voice fades. And when that happens and he stops, he realizes he needs to go tell the queen that it is now safe. He takes one quick look around, not paying any mind that what he did about eating the spider, he paid that no mind, nor did he really realize that his tail grew back fully. The piece that was in the water burnt away because it couldn't make its way back to Akeada himself, but he paid it no mind. Didn't even realize his tail grew back in its entirety. He just had one thing on his mind now, to go tell the queen that the area is safe. So he makes his way back through the hole in the wall, making it just a bit bigger for more to pass, goes to the queen, and lets her know that it's safe. The portion of the faceplate that was the mouth area has now sealed back up, and he now no longer has a mouth. So, with that said, everybody in the old chamber now makes their way to the new one. And that's going to be their new dedicated area. Now, there are a few passageways, but most of them lead to dead ends. We're done with the story now, or at least the cave part. Well, not the cave part. The cave part's still going far, but we're done telling the story for today. So, to explain the cave a little bit, the new portion, there are some dead ends. So if you think about it, there is a small not really a small, like a medium size walkway with no water, and then it dips off into knee deep, knee or shin deep, depending on where you size. Rocket it's just knee deep. It's not too deep. For them, it'll probably be up to the waist. So a good portion of water, and it just goes all the way back. It doesn't get any deeper than that. It's just water coming in from, not really, it's like trickling in. So it's not flooded or anything like that. But there are some corridors in the water that lead down a different path, and then there's some on the land portion. There's two, one going completely straight, and then one that veers off to the left that also branches off as well. But we'll get to those later. Everybody, today we are done. Hope you enjoyed the story today. I know not the greatest, but the fight is done and it is back to exploring the cave. So everybody, have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, be well, stay safe, and enjoy yourselves. Until next time, everybody. Well, until next Monday. Take care.